You're listening to Served Up, a podcast that features inspiring beverage professionals and topic experts that share their passions through meaningful conversations. I'm your host, Bridget Albert, also known as a Market Fresh Mixologist, an industry mentor with decades of experience. Grab a cocktail and sit back. Let's learn how we can make a positive impact in our industry. Hey y'all, it's Bridget here. I had the chance to speak with Antonio Rodriguez, Master Distiller and Senior VP of Production at Weber Ranch Vodka. Antonio takes us through his meticulous process behind crafting their high-quality agave-based vodka, sharing his expertise in distillation and passion for the craft. He also talks about the innovative techniques that set Weber Ranch Vodka apart from a very competitive industry. So tune in for a deep dive into the art of vodka making from one of the best in the business. Sit back, relax, grab yourself your favorite Weber Ranch Vodka cocktail, and enjoy the show. Antonio, welcome to Served Up. I am so excited to have you on the show today. I am a fan of Weber Ranch Vodka.
Thank you very much, Bridget, and thanks for being a fan. It's been an interesting journey. I mean, it's the first ever 100% Weber agave-based vodka. So it's good to hear people that is enjoying it right now.
Absolutely. Can you tell our listeners about you, Antonio? I know you grew up in Jalisco, Mexico, and you have just a terrific journey that brought you into spirits, into Patron, probably most notably before Weber Ranch. Can we hear about your journey?
For sure. Yeah, basically born and raised in Jalisco, and for some weird reason, I decided to study chemical engineering. I got my degree on that. Doesn't sound fun at all, but it was a little fun. And once I finished my degree, I was basically eager to work anywhere. Actually, at that point, I was passionate about paper. My passion was to make paper, believe that. But out of the blue, I got a phone call from Patron HR department. They were expanding the production back then, and former Patron master distiller Francisco Alcaraz, I was working with him and teach me a lot through the years. He came from the same school that I got my degree on, University of Guadalajara. So he called the university to get the database of the guys that were finishing that year. I was on that list. They called me, and I just said yes to, at that point, a new adventure of spirits. I had zero experience then. I had zero interest, to be honest with you, but it ended up being quite a nice journey into spirits.
Let's talk about what was it like growing up in Jalisco?
I mean, it's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful state. It's the second biggest state of Mexico. Tequila is definitely a big part of that. All the people from Jalisco, we say that Jalisco represents Mexico because that's where tequila is coming from. That's where mariachi is coming from. So we always say like, hey, if you're from Jalisco, you concentrate the best of Mexico. So we're proud of that. And as you can tell, tequila, it's a massive representation of Jalisco because most of the tequilas have to be made there. So with the popularity and the growing consumption of tequila, especially in the US, that whole industry kept growing and growing, which means more people involved into that, more people like working on that industry. So it's definitely a massive part of living in Jalisco, being around tequila and the tequila industry.
And so to go from tequila that is so enriched in the town that you are from, that is what it's known for, to jump into vodka, what did your community say? How did they react? And what was going on in your mind?
That was an interesting transition. I mean, through my last part of my career in Patron, I moved to Texas in 2021. So I spent 17 years in production operations. And I wanted to expand now to commercial because it's a whole different universe. It's super fascinating how to produce a spirit, but I think it's almost as fascinating how to commercialize that, all the education involved, all the distribution and everything that from the operation side, you don't realize that. So I was eager to learn that piece. So I did that transition and then I moved into vodka. So to your question, like what happened on my background or people thinking about it, all the people that it was close to me was super excited about it. They were like happy to see that transition going and they knew that I was not going to do something that was not respectful for the agave or trying to take the agave to a bigger audience now into the vodka spectrum. Of course, I also got some conversations, some people there like was kind of confused about it. Like, why vodka? I mean, agave, I'm pretty sure you're aware of this, but a lot of the people, when you say agave, they immediately think on tequila. Even though agave, there's mezcal and some other agave spirits out there, you say agave and people think tequila. So it was a lot of confusion. Also, part of our process, actually, our process begins in Jalisco when we harvest the agave and we start running the first part of the process. So I was there when we were doing the R&D for Weber Ranch. And yeah, there was confusion that quickly transitioned into excitement. And nowadays, people is happy of Weber Ranch in a way that is taking the agave to a different audience.
I mean, absolutely. I don't know that you could get much opposite of spirit categories on tequila and vodka unless we did like tequila and cream liqueurs or something, right? So it's such a stretch. It really is. And I've had the pleasure of sampling and trying and being a real fan of Weber Ranch. And so can we talk about Weber Ranch's inception? What did that look like, creating a vodka from agave?
Everything began, truly is going to sound like super cheesy, but for the love of the agave that we carry, I mean, the people behind Weber Ranch, all of us come from Patron Tequila. When we met the agave for the first time, we fall in love with agave and how fascinating it is. Just being a plant that has to take up to 7 years to mature, that can survive pretty much on every single area. Of course, depending on the care that you do to the plant is going to be the quality of the sugars and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's a super resilient plant. And the spirit that it produces, the sugars and the alcohol that it produces are some complex and some flavorful that we truly fall in love with it. But as you know, nowadays, the tequila industry is extremely saturated. And we spent several years working at Patron where we truly tell the people that was the best tequila that they can drink because the process, because a lot of things. So it was not a good idea trying to come back to trying to produce a different tequila and now telling like, oh, now this is the new best thing. But what we saw in the industry and all the growing interest for people to drink agave spirits is like, even to this day, a lot of people drink tequila when they're trying to get on the agave spirits, but not everybody is ready to enjoy what I will say a well-made tequila because the intensity of the agave might be too much for a lot of people. And at that point, they go through different paths. And one of those paths is like trying to find a tequila that is sweeter or easier to drink. But a lot of those times is that end up being a tequila that is loaded with additives or some other things to make it easier to enjoy. So we saw a bigger opportunity there where like, okay, people that want to drink a spirit that is made of agave, but they not necessarily enjoy the intensity on a tequila. What else can we do without going to that additional help of an additive or something else? And then if you put together the numbers, what's the biggest spirits category by volume that is consumed in the US? That's vodka by far. And when you go back to a couple of years in the vodka scenery, there's not a lot of disruption or innovation on it besides like kind of the water source that you're using or some other elements, there hasn't been a massive disruption. So at that point for us was like a eureka moment where like, okay, we have fascinating raw material and we have a spirit category that has the potential in volume that, let's be honest, a little bit of disruption might be nice at this time. And we just basically connect the dots and say like, okay, let's try it. Let's see what an agave vodka can taste like. And that's how we start.
Well, let's go from there. What does Weber Ranch taste like?
That was an interesting process because when I joined Weber Ranch, we was basically part of the inception of the company. I just knew I was contacted by Lee Applebaum or president from Brown to Spirits that represents Weber Ranch. And he just told me like, hey, we have a project in mind. And since I know Lee for a while, Ed Brown, our CEO, like, okay, if you guys are working together, I truly want to be with you. At that point, I was not even aware what's going to be. That's when they told me about like, okay, let's figure it out, this agave-based vodka. And I said like, deal. I mean, my whole experience was distilling tequila. I never distilled vodka, but let's start working on it. So we start working on the R&D for the brand. And we start distilling some agave distillates to the vodka threshold, which is 190 proof. And the best day of my life on this R&D process was the first time that I put some agave distillate to our column steel, copper column steel, and then run the whole process to 190 proof. And when I taste the sample, I was able to find a lot of the agave spirit that I put in. So for me, that was the best news because on my experience, I have much more knowledge to play with the agave distillate side than on the vodka distillation process. So at that point, it was like, okay, I know what I need to do to get something specific. And something that we have on mind developing this Weber Ranch taste profile was that this is a vodka. Yes, it's an agave-based vodka, but it's a vodka. So we're not trying to taste like a tequila, which was kind of a little bit of the challenging piece. And that's why I started working from the design of the agave spirit to be less on the agave intensity notes, less on the vegetable side of it, and emphasize more of that fruitiness and citrusy of the agave, which after the distillation on the vodka process to 190 proof, was able to, yes, at the end of the day, and especially people that drink a lot of spirits that has experience a trained palate, they can definitely find the agave notes on Weber Ranch. But for a regular consumer, they can easily describe Weber Ranch as a very flavorful, sweet, fruity vodka, which that was kind of our mindset. Let's make sure that people know that we are a vodka. Yes, we share the same ingredient as all tequilas, but this is a different expression of agave.
It really is. And, just so our listeners, because we are a global show, right? We're in 60 countries, and they might not all really understand the difference of tequila and vodka. Can you very simply spell that out?
Basically, the main difference, or the way I will frame it, why Weber Ranch is a vodka and not a tequila, it's two main things. The first one, tequila has an appellation of origin. So all tequila has to be made in Mexico, specifically Jalisco and part of 4 other states. In our case, Weber Ranch is distilled in Texas. So geographically, that's the first difference. And secondly, which is the most important in my point of view, is the way it is distilled. For tequila, there's not a threshold on distillation. Usually all tequilas, depending on the process, will be distilled, I will say, between 80 and 160 proof, depending if you're using a pot still, a column still, different methods. And for vodka specifically, you gotta be a neutral spirit. And you reach the threshold of neutral spirit after distilling to 190 proof or above. So that will be the main difference. Tequila is made in the appellation of origin territory, and it's cross ferment, distill to a certain point, but not at a specific threshold, vodka has to be a neutral spirit. So in our case, we start with agave from Jalisco. We cross ferment and distill first in Jalisco. So at that point, we're kind of basically head to what will be a tequila. But then we take that agave distillate to Texas and we run the vodka distillation to 190 proof. That's what separates both the spirits, basically.
When you were, really creating Weber Ranch, did you have any moments that took you by surprise? Did you have any moments with vodka that maybe was like, okay, vodka deserves its place within spirits as a category that's actually delicious?
Definitely. And several moments of surprise or amusement on this journey on transitioning from tequila now to vodka. And the first one was how flexible vodka is in a way that, here, TTB definition for a vodka is basically can be made out of anything, which it gives you like two different perspectives, because there's a lot of people that is taking advantage of that definition to make a vodka out of basically whatever cheapest source you can produce alcohol with. But on the other end, and that's kind of the approach that we took, why not taking that definition and make vodka out of the best ingredient that we know, which in this case is agave. Now, another moment of surprise for me was being new on the vodka process. I just used the same logic on how I learned the tequila process, which was by asking the people that is doing the things. So when I joined Patron, I was like lucky to be around Francisco Alcaraz, former master distiller, but also around the people that was operating the pot stills and the day-by-day operator. So that's when you learn a lot. So what I tried to do here was like, okay, let me talk to people that run vodka distilleries. And one of the first surprises that I got was like, I basically couldn't find a distillery that was a small distillery, but that was truly distilling to 190 proof. So a lot of the things going on the vodka scene area right now is like, you just buy the neutral spirit and then just run one more distillation, which is not as complex as taking the alcohol to 190 proof. Because after you reach the 190 proof, you can do whatever afterwards. So I was struggling to find consultancy on that end, like, hey, how you do it, how you achieve that? Because to my other surprise, a lot of people have the misconception that vodka is super easy or super simple to make because it has to be colorless, odorless, tasteless, which is not the case in Weber Ranch specifically and many other vodkas that are well made. But distilling agave to 190 proof has an extra layer of difficulty, of complexity. And why is that? Because the sugars from agave are much more complex than any other sugars produced by grain, corn, or some other ingredients. By starting with more complex sugars, when you ferment those, you produce much more diverse, heavier, and complex alcohols. So taking a heavier mix of alcohols to 190 proof is much difficult than when you have a much more simple mix of alcohols. So that was the other kind of surprise, that what people thought like, oh, that should be super easy. I was struggling a lot to reach that stage of 190 proof. And on the other hand, make sure that you have that flavor, because at the end of the day, if we're launching Weber Ranch, which is an agave-based vodka, but when you drink it, it tastes the same like a vodka made of corn, wheat, potato, or anything else, then what's the point? So we needed to find something that was flavorful enough to showcase that it's different, but at the same point, mixable enough because it is a vodka and it has to be mixable.
Right. And that's the thing, and vodka drinkers are typically very loyal, right, to their vodka brands. I feel like sometimes they don't even know that they're drinking vodka. They just know that they're drinking like whatever brand it is, right? And so you do have to stand out in a way that it is versatile.
And that was a key element. Also, when we got the first, let's say, approved batch of Weber Ranch, and by approved I mean that all the partners and we were happy with the taste profile. The second moment of truth for me was when we did the cocktail development, because I was like, okay, this vodka tastes good. I mean, for my taste, I like it a lot. I can drink this neat. I can drink this on the rocks. But let's be honest, very, very few people drink vodka that way. Vodka is consuming cocktails. So I was actually worried about like how this is going to taste on a martini, how this is going to take on traditional vodka cocktails. So we took those bottles of the first batch. We went to a bar. Very good friend of us, and you know him, Stephen Halpin, was helping us like figure out, like experimenting things. And the moment I tried the first cocktails, I was like, I love this. Perfect. Especially because we did side by side, same recipe made of Weber Ranch and same recipe made with other well-known vodka. And so like, okay, let's figure out if there's a difference. And we understood at that point that it's not only the flavor profile of Weber Ranch, but the mouthfeel that is a key characteristic from our vodka. It's a well-rounded mouthfeel. It's super viscosity on the mouthfeel that Weber Ranch has. So that gave us the possibility to improve any vodka cocktail by adding an extra layer of complexity and mouthfeel, which, as you're right, a lot of people that drink a specific vodka, they haven't tried that vodka neat. What I've been learning in this couple of months that we've been out in the market is like, okay, whatever you usually drink, let's pour that brand and Weber Ranch neat and just discover what you're drinking. And everybody's like, wow, I was not real. I didn't know that this vodka that I usually drink tastes like this compared to what Weber Ranch tastes. So it's a lot of education behind Weber Ranch, which is something that I love. It's a brand that requires, let's be honest, it's not an easy sell just to sell, agave-based vodka. Everybody make a weird eyes like, what? Agave? That's tequila. No, I don't get it. So you're required to have a little bit of conversation. And I love when that conversation leads to, okay, let's try it. That moment when people try Weber Ranch for the first time, I cannot be happier when I see those faces being like, oh, this is not what I expected. And then go back to the second sip and like, oh, I can really drink this. And then they discover that on a cocktail and like, oh, the cocktail I love it. So going through that journey from like hesitant of what it is to like, I love it, I want to drink this one, that's a huge realization for me when I see that happening.
Yeah, that's a really interesting statement to taste the spirits on their own, side by side, see what stands up, right? Because I think that most folks that drink this particular category, vodka, have no idea what it's made from. Zero. How vodka is made, what it's made from. They just know the brand that they like. And so what you're doing is something, it is very innovative for vodka, right? It's not a flavor. It's made from agave, which brings those textures or oils or whatever it might be, right, into that mouthfeel. And so you're right. There has to be just so much education behind it. I can't even imagine.
Especially because we're transitioning from something that is well known on tequila and different from vodka. Tequila is massive on education, influencers that are into the tequila category. So there's overflow of information on the tequila side. But you're right, on the vodka scenery, there's pretty much nothing. And that's why we see as a huge opportunity, because for us, it's all about transparency. Let me tell you how I do it, and let me explain you why I do it this way, and then you can try it. Because on the vodka scene, what I've seen so far is there's not a lot of transparency of how it's made or where it's sourced or more details on the production piece. It's not as fascinating, I will say, at other spirits that people wants to know more. And it's basically the biggest differentiation is like, okay, if I'm a small batch craft distillery vodka versus big volume vodka. And that's kind of the only two things. But even in that level, there's not a lot of information besides the size of the brand. In our case, we're telling the people all the details, and we're really blessed that we're involved. We're one of the very few vodkas in the market that we are involved all the way from the harvesting of the agave, the harvesting of the crop. It's not like we're sourcing the natural spirit. It's not that we're sourcing whatever grain for whoever is selling at that point. Our business model is all the way to when we're harvesting the agave, from which location we're harvesting the agave. All that is done by hand, all the way to the final distillation in our distillery here in Monster, Texas, which is fully made on copper pot still, copper column steel. So basically, we are hands-on all the way from the raw material harvesting to the final distillation, which is fascinating.
Totally handmade then. I mean, it's really, there's hands on it, human hands that are cultivating this vodka, which is really quite special.
All the way from planting and harvesting the agave to putting the labels on the bottle, there's a lot of people involved, which is part of my favorite thing about this industry is the people that you touch, from the distillery side, from the operations, all the way to the final consumer. And we're in a fun industry. It's all about creating moments that people can enjoy, drink something nice, close the day with a good cocktail, celebrate a good thing with a good cocktail, or use a good cocktail just to get over something that you want to get over with. But we're in a fun industry and allows you to connect with a lot of people. So being able to be on a distillery producing a spirit that is a lot of manual, a lot of labor involved, that's what I love about this place.
Yeah, it's amazing. Can you talk about its name? Why is it called Weber Ranch, and what is the significance of that little date that you have on there? I believe it's 1902.
1902, yeah. It's Weber Ranch is basically kind of the easiest way to explain is two different elements on the name. Weber, that comes from the name of the agave. The full name of the agave is Blue Weber agave. So Weber is the last name of the botanist that basically cataloged the agave in 1902. So there's plenty of varieties of agave in Mexico, over 100 of those. In 1902, Constantin Weber, a French botanist, was doing some research in Mexico and was able to identify the specific characteristic of the Blue Weber agave. At that point, was just another agave. So he said, like, okay, this is very specific because these characteristics, the shape, the color, how it grows, how it reproduces. So based on his research, basically the government decided to like, okay, we're so thankful about this that we're going to keep your name on the name of this variety of agave. So we try to honor that and just keep that last name Weber, and Ranch because we're made in Texas. So Ranch is like a easy connection between where we're made, honoring Constantin Weber, putting the ranch connector, and that's where Weber Ranch is coming from. And 1902 is the year that basically the formal name of the agave was given. So that's kind of our way to honor the history that is behind the Blue Weber agave itself. And that's kind of what we put together for the name.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. You are honoring the culture as well by just having that little date on there.
And it's interesting that very few people is aware of that, even with so much interest that is around tequila nowadays and agave and sustainability and all of that. It is a surprise for a lot of them. So I love that because it's a quick and easy intro when you can start having the conversation because they're like, oh, you've been out there since 1902? Like, no, we're pretty new. At this point, we're less than a year old. So no, but we start based on, again, let's honor the agave in a different way, which was kind of a initial challenge that we have, because we know these people that are passionate for agave here for the first time, an agave-based vodka. They were like, "Oh, why are you doing that? That's not nice. You're wasting agave." Because, and I don't blame that if you use the old definition of a vodka again, odorless, tasteless, colorless. Like if you're gonna take something so precious and agave all the way to that, I get it. That might be a waste of agave. But once we show them how we did Weber Ranch and how flavorful it is to be a vodka, but at the end of the day, all of this audience that is passionate to the agave is starting to see that Weber Ranch is a good way to welcome people into the agave world. Say like, okay, you don't need to drink something super strong to be an agave spirit. You can drink Weber Ranch, which is pretty easy to drink, super mixable. And at the end of the day, something that we're really proud of is that we are validated as additive-free vodka from the Additive-Free Alliance, which is an organization heavily focused on tequilas, but basically also in everything that is done with agave. And we knew that that was our opportunity to showcase like, hey, even before we launch, we got to make sure to run the process so everybody knows that we're additive free, and not because we tell them, but because we have somebody else that can validate that. And at the end of the day, it was like, okay, we're respecting this. We're just bringing agave to more people, and we're doing it the right way by not using anything but agave and water in our production process.
Yeah, I think that's really important, especially there's a focus right now around additive free and sustainability. So, those are the buzzwords. And so, if you are doing any of those things, you really need to let the consumer know.
Especially being a new brand, and they need to know, like, we're using all the experience that we have around agave to do the right thing, because we're here to do the right thing and to be here for the long term, for the long run. We know that all the challenges that are happening around the agave right now is because of all those peaks in demand and like crazy years when everybody's trying to go into the tequila industry or something else with agave. We're outside of that noise because we're not thinking just for 1 or 2 years and capitalize on that one. We have a plan which is long term, because that was kind of another question that we have. Oh, right now is the perfect timing to do an agave-based vodka because there's a lot of offer on agave. We were like, no, actually, we start this process. We start working on the idea when there was still a shortage of agave. So it was really crazy when we started developing the idea. By the time that we're launching right now, it's on the other end. Now there's a lot of offer of agave, but again, we're working directly with one agave grower that has been harvesting agave. It's a third generation agave grower. So he's truly experienced on ups and downs on agave, and he's been doing that not for 1 year. It's been, again, third generation agave grower. So we're kind of isolated of all this noise because we're going directly to the source.
I think it's really important. And I love that you're working with third generation. I mean, there's just not many industries that can say that anymore, right?
And that's the beauty of agave, that since it takes so long, I mean, you need two things. I mean, you need to truly love the agave to be in that industry, and you need to be patient. If you don't do any of those two, I mean, you might have a good year, a bad year, and then you decide to transition to something else. But you're right. I mean, being around that industry for 3 generations, that tells you that they've been patient, that they've been respecting the agave, and they've been doing the right thing on how to be in the business for that many years. And that's what we wanted to do business with this agave grower and say like, okay, let's do the right thing. Let's talk to each other. Let's share information, because I think that will be the best thing that can happen to agave, if there's a better communication between producers and agave growers. Because if you plan together, that's going to help both sides. But sadly, that's not the common denominator. In our case, we developed good relationships on our previous life doing tequila. So we use that to say, like, now we know who can trust and how we can make a good business plan for the long term. And that's basically what we do.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, without these agave farmers, without these agave growers, there's no tequila, there's no Weber Ranch, and communities collapse because so many communities are so dependent on this industry.
So many people, it's around the industry. I mean, just to give you some numbers, this grower that we're working with, it has a couple of thousand people just working on the fields. So it's high intensity on labor. There's a lot of people required to harvest, to plant agave, to maintain the lands. It's a lot of people behind that. And the way we wanted to do this is make sure that everybody is doing the right thing and everybody can have a good job, a good business going on for the future years.
Yeah.
And that's a key element of, I will say, behind Weber Ranch, but of everything that we're trying to do is make sure that it's long term and everybody can have a benefit out of this plan.
I love that. And I think that Weber Ranch should create a t-shirt that says, God grant me the patience of an agave grower. Because if we all had their patience, what a better world this would be.
And I think that's the reward right there. When you're able to wait for the agave to fully mature and then distill it, the spirit that you can create are amazing. And I mean, in this case, Weber Ranch is a true testament of how flexible the agave can be for something that can be super agave forward right in front of you if you really want those rich flavors, or something super mixable like Weber Ranch when you have that sweetness, that mouthfeel that allow you to even sip it neater on the rocks, but also a perfect canvas for any cocktail and make a martini much more rich. Cosmo, espresso martini, emphasizing the sweetness of Weber Ranch. So it can make any cocktail basically better just by putting a better ingredient, a better spirit. And that's kind of the logic behind Weber Ranch. A better raw material produces a better vodka. A better vodka will produce a better cocktail. If you drink a better cocktail, you're going to be in better mood. So let's make the world a happier place by enjoying better cocktails.
I agree. You made such a bold move with your career choice. When I think about back to the beginning of our conversation, and you said I was going to go into paper, and I automatically think of like Dunder Mifflin and the show The Office. And that's where my head goes. And I'm like, I cannot see my new friend Antonio sitting in Scranton, Pennsylvania, making paper. I just can't see it. So can you give some advice to folks that are listening that maybe want to make that bold career choice like you did? What advice do you have for them?
Let me clarify that thing. Like when I was thinking of making paper, it was not on an office. Basically, on the engineering side of things, producing paper is a massive machine. And usually a massive machine will have one engineer in charge of the whole thing. So for me, that was fascinating. And being honest with you, at that point, I was doing the research when I was finishing my degree. And that was the job that paid the best for new hires. So I was just chasing the place that I can do better at that point. And the bold move was like, okay, the opportunity appeared. Like when Patron called me, I was like, okay, I'm waiting for another job, but this is solid. I'll take it and I'll learn about that. What I can say is kind of the same thing that happened when I moved from Patron, at that point, Bacardi already after the acquisition, to Weber Ranch, because I came from a place that I spent 17 years and I was learning a lot. I was having a successful career there, to a new venture of something that has never been done before and we never knew what's going to happen. But at the end of the day, for me, it's been all about the people, being willing to learn and trusting the people that you're working with. In my beginning with Patron, I was able again to learn from all the way to from the master distiller to the people that was chopping agave, crushing agave, distilling firsthand. So I knew that you can learn a lot. And the people behind Weber Ranch, I met them on the Patron days. I admire them a lot. I believe in their way of working. So when they told me to do something, I said, like, it's the people that I know how they work. And I think nowadays, finding somebody that you can share values and enjoy working together, that's the best part. So for people, sometimes it's just that jump of faith. Mm-hmm. You might have a plan and you're trying to do something, but if there's an opportunity right there, let's do it. Especially if you are around people that you trust and you admire. If you're lucky to work with people that you admire, nothing can go wrong on that end because you're going to learn. And if you're willing to learn, you're going to be in a good place.
Wow. That is such good advice. You really did jump in with both feet and creating something that really hasn't been done before. And like we said in our conversation, it takes a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of education around an agave vodka, but you create something delicious. And I think it's amazing. And I'm proud of you and your team. I think it's great. And, with that said, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I do hope that you'll come back and give us an update on all the cool things that Weber Ranch is doing in the future. And I want to wish you just a lot of great health and a lot of peace. So cheers to you and cheers to Weber Ranch.
Thank you very much, Bridget. Thank you for the opportunity because, we're just asking for one thing to everyone. Just give it a try. Give it a try. And I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy it. And if not, I mean, it is what it is. Not everybody has to love it, but at least give it a try and trust that we're doing the right thing. We have the right motivation behind it. And at this point, we just want to bring a good offer of how to enjoy agave in a different way. Yeah. And thank you very much, Bridget, for the opportunity to talk to your audience. It's exciting. I'm going to have a lot of fun talking to you and going back to those memories of when we started and all those challenges. And I'm glad that your audience will be able to know that from Weber Ranch now.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening. Served Up is brought to you by Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. Produced by Zunu.online. Music by We Killed the Lion can be found on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe to be notified of our future Served Up episodes. Cheers.